because when you say no as a young woman to a desirable young man, you're saying, I have something to offer you that won't just be given away, despite the fact that you're of high status.
I worry though also about girls, because academically they're doing much better from preschool all the way to
a little rough on
university.
the mental health front.
Exactly, on the mental health front. And I wonder, being told you're a victim, that you're oppressed, even though if you live in the West, what does that do to the female psyche of a young woman growing up? Thinking that
it definitely increases the degree to which young women are anxious and depressed, because it makes them self-conscious. And we know the more you think about yourself, the more unhappy you are. And it's such a striking phenomenon that if you look at this statistically, there's almost no difference between self-conscious thoughts, so thoughts that involve I, let's say, and suffering from the ravages of negative emotion like emotion and depression. And so this obsessive self-centeredness, narrow self-centeredness, just makes all of that suffering much, much worse. So clearly, that's clearly the case. And a victim is someone to whom things constantly happen involuntarily. And if you construe yourself as a victim rather than as an actor, let's say, then as an actor of your own destiny, then you put yourself in a situation where you're constantly under what your body responds to as stress. So that's clearly no good. And then I think there's another factor that's, many other factors that are confusing young women. Confusion on the sexual front, the idea that if you're properly liberated, then the entire gamut of sexual freedom opens itself up to you, and that's how life should work. It's just, that's just not true at all. It's especially not true for women. I mean, I've been toying with the idea, and I think this might be right, that it's the capacity to say no that gives young women status. That's actually the base. So imagine that young women are competing for young men of status. So then the question is, and maybe they're at a disadvantage because they want higher status males, right? So that puts them at a perennial disadvantage, and there's some truth in that. So then what do the women have as a buttress against that status differential? And I would say all they have is the ability to say no, because when you say no as a young woman to a desirable young man, you're saying, I have something to offer you that won't just be given away, despite the fact that you're of high status. And so you blow that apart in the name of sexual freedom. I think you deprive young women of all their, you deprive them of all their status. It's not like the young men don't know that. They know that perfectly well. They respect young women who say no. They might complain and cavil and carp about it, but when push comes to shove, and the data on this are quite clear,